Thanks, Anita.
And back now to politics. You know, there have been warnings from both sides of the aisle about potential problems at the polls this election, from election fraud to voter suppression and intimidation. But despite that, it turns out that while the Justice Department says it will deploy hundreds of monitors across the country, it turns out it'll be sending fewer election observers to polling places because of a Supreme Court ruling on voter rights. U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch says her department will also be handling any complaints on a case-by-case basis.
We have a very decentralized election system. Every state has a different system. Very few of them are connected to the internet. We have, however, offered assistance if any state feels that they have been the victim of an attack or there has been some sort of online activity. We are working with anyone who feels that that has occurred to make sure that we can prevent any harm from being done.
How could this impact the process? DeLancy joins us from Raleigh, North Carolina. He's a retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and Executive Director of the North Carolina Voter Integrity Project, which does monitor the election process in his state. Jay, good to see you. First of all, early voting has started in your state. Have you been out looking at the polls? Have you seen any federal observers or monitors? What's going on?
Yes, Eric, it has started, but no, I haven't. And I started looking around for them because we have had OSCE observers, you know, the UN type observers in past years, and we haven't seen them here yet, but we'd like to.
Well, guess who's coming back? You just said OSCE. That's the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and most Americans don't know this. But international observers are coming here to observe the election. They've done that before. Let me read you something from their website. I mean, this is what the international poll watchers, and there are going to be 400 of them at our polls. This is what they say they will be doing. Observers will closely monitor voter and candidate registration, campaign activities, the work of the election administration and relevant government bodies, election-related legislation and its implementation, the media environment, and the resolution of election-related disputes as part of the observation. The mission will also monitor the media coverage of the campaign. The short-term observers will be deployed throughout the country in multinational teams of 2 to monitor the opening of polling stations, the voting, the counting of ballots, and the tabulation of the results. I mean, what do you think of this when you've got countries, and guess who's a member of this group? Russia, a member of this group standing, you know, potentially at our polls.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing. 2 points on it. One, most of the countries involved are not as free as America is, and the other, of course, is that their voter ID laws are tighter than we have in this country. And in fact, 4 years ago when they came here, that was one of them went away shaking his head saying, we could never do an election like this in your country. It's all based on the honor system. So he saw the problem with these no ID laws that we have in America.
Did you deal with them when they were down there? Did you see these reports? I mean, you're talking about the guy who was at one time the head of the Libyan election system. He was stunned. And Gambia, the representative from Gambia was saying in his country, they apparently put a marble in a glass jar. So in order to vote, you got to get the marble, you got to put it in the jar, and if you show up to vote and don't have a marble, you can't vote.
Oh, goodness. I haven't seen any of them yet. I did go out today looking and asking around to see if anybody had seen any, but because there was early voting going on today. And they're not here yet, apparently, or if they are, I didn't see them.
And finally, do you anticipate any problems? Your group, I mean, look, you found a guy named Pascal Parker who voted 3 times in the 2012 presidential election. He voted in person, he pled guilty, voting in person in Tennessee, then by absentee ballot in North Carolina and Florida. There's Mr. Parker. I mean, the system, Jay, is supposed to catch someone who does that, yet he was caught by you guys.
It's true. We caught him and we pushed for prosecution and we helped every aspect of it. They threw the book at him and he'll get to vote again in 1 year. So it's a flawed system where people like that get just barely a slap on the wrist.
He's going to vote. He could vote. He gets his voting rights back in 1 year?
North Carolina restores felon voting rights, and his crime for voting in 3 states, he got 2 years probation. And so there's just, our laws are a joke. They don't prosecute because the penalties are so low. And so it's a circular argument. The DAs won't bother prosecuting these, and we've had a bear of a time trying to get these DAs to prosecute the cases we've found. That one, DA Ted Bell, attorney in western part of North Carolina, he did his job. We've had one other one who did her job, and we've had several who refused. So we're very happy to get any prosecutions whatsoever.
Yeah, all right. Well, there have been prosecutions, obviously, but your view is that there are certainly not enough of them. But I'm sure that you'll be monitoring Mr. Pasco potentially a year from now. Jay DeLancy of the Voter Integrity Project in North Carolina. I know you're going to have a busy couple of weeks. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Eric.
Of course. Arthel?
Okay, Eric, thanks. Well, Defense Secretary Ash Carter weighing in on the fight for the ISIS stronghold on Mosul, planning ahead to keep the terrorists from coming back once they've been defeated. General Jack Keane on that subject straight ahead.